Time is coiled upon itself like a giant spring, compressed down into a single moment, and everything is happening and contained in that single moment. Everything. Most of us experience time as a linear progression, a sequence of events through which our consciousness moves exclusively in one direction. You may balk at how limiting that is, but it's actually a helpful tool or framework that allows you to experience your life in a certain way. But it's just one way that time can be configured, perceived, and used. It's one possible user interface for the substrate of the thing that we call time. Some people have moments when this common linear user interface stops working. There are many different ways this temporary lapse in normal time configuration can happen. In fact, this happens all the time to everyone, but usually your mind will automatically apply a continuity patch. This patch smooths out the contours of that momentary disruption, blurs it out a bit, and that makes it easier for your conscious mind to skip over those instances in order to maintain a continuous experience of time as forward motion. Another concept we need to touch on is other timelines, or you might like to think of them as parallel universes. Some of these are dramatically different from our own, but some are so similar, you might wonder what's the point of having an entire parallel universe in order to express such trivial variations. Sometimes there are overlaps or bleed-throughs from other lives. The most common intrusions come from past lives and parallel lives, and the two we'll talk about today are overlaps and bleed-throughs. Overlaps are when you suddenly become aware of a past or parallel life. It may be in the form of suddenly having vivid memories of these lives, of these past selves, or it may be something more immediate and visceral, like you may experience moments where you are living both lives simultaneously. As an example, I was sunbathing on my balcony on a warm spring morning in my current life and riding a train from the East Coast to Pasadena with my friends in the late 1920s. I was living and experiencing both of these fully and simultaneously, not sitting on my balcony and remembering the train ride from the past life. This happened for an hour or so, and then my awareness consolidated back into my current life. In an overlap, your awareness is affected, but not your body or your physical environment. A bleed-through is more consequential, more of an actual intrusion. Some examples of bleed-through include being partially hacked by a past or parallel self, and I say hacked, but you may feel more familiar with the concept of possession. Other selves can temporarily take over and act through your current persona. They can make you feel their feelings. They can patch in their preferences, fears, and priorities. Because they're your other selves, you may not even register these intrusions as coming from outside yourself, because even though they're not you, they also feel familiar enough so that your inner security system doesn't get tripped. These kinds of intrusions usually happen in short, intense bursts, after which you're often left wondering what just happened. It's a very uncanny me but not me kind of feeling. Another form of bleed-through is physical. You could start experiencing illness, pain, or other physical symptoms that actually originate in and belong to a past or parallel incarnation. A lot of times these are negative experiences, but occasionally something beneficial will bleed through, like a useful skill or ability, or a slight change in appearance or even biological age. Are there dangers in all this? Well, overlapping isn't inherently dangerous, but it can lead to a maladaptive fascination that causes life derailment. You can imbue these experiences with an urgency and significance that's just not there. You might convince yourself that you're supposed to follow these threads and do something or solve something, or that these other lives hold the key to your well-being or spiritual development. And so you take one step in that direction and the momentum sucks you into the proverbial rabbit hole. Experiences of overlap are really interesting. They really are, but also no big deal. It's too often you can become obsessed with discovering more or figuring something out, as though there's a valuable prize at the end of the puzzle. But there isn't a prize, nor likely even any puzzle. It's all too common to have this extraordinary experience of overlap and then make up a story around it out of whole cloth, giving it meaning and significance that's just not there. Bleed through is another matter entirely, and these experiences can be really confusing and destabilizing. They can happen spontaneously, but they can also happen because of something you've done inadvertently or intentionally to open yourself to it. They can also happen through the intent of your other life self, pushing out into your life stream. Your other selves have different motivations for doing this. Most of the ones I've seen are parasitic. You instinctively feel bound to these other selves, but are you? What do you owe these other selves? Well, nothing really. You're not obligated to offer them room and board if they pop in uninvited, with all their problematic baggage, no less. They have, or had, their lives, their own designated realm to explore and cultivate. It's rather greedy of them to muscle into yours. But it can be devilishly hard to establish and maintain your sovereignty and authority when dealing with intrusions, because these are your other selves, and you naturally feel a familiarity, affinity, and deep empathy for them. Generally speaking, only the less developed selves will impose on you in this way, which is why these situations tend toward the parasitic. These other selves have strong, unresolved pain, longing, fear, or some kind of powerful emotional imprint that they bleed over. The mechanism is akin to a kind of reverse chemical osmosis, but it only works if you offer them a semi-permeable boundary. More evolved selves who have something to offer can certainly interact with you, but they wouldn't do it in a way that compromises your sovereignty or boundaries. They wouldn't employ the bleed-through method in the first place. In all of this, one key factor always comes into play: knowing what's you and what's not you. If you've incorporated a daily practice of clearing away the fragments and debris in your energetic space and hone your ability to recognize and amplify your unique signature frequency, it will be a lot easier to detect an intrusion. And once you detect it, you need to refrain from leaning into it out of fascination, out of a need to be distracted from your own life, out of a sense of loyalty or obligation to another self. You lean in, and this immediately puts you off balance. This all sounds like some great big warning, doesn't it? Well, it's meant to be. Yet, can I confide something here? I interact with my past, future, and other selves all the time. There are ways and reasons to do this, but it needs to be undertaken from a place of authority, clarity, and unshakable equilibrium. If you'd like to know about working safely, intentionally in this space, let me know in the comments below. And if there's enough interest, I'll make a video touching on some of those practices. Until we speak again, be well.